We've been talking since the beginning of the pandemic hitting America that the combination of a lack of a sufficient response to it with the just massive number of incarcerated individuals in America was going to end up being a disaster. We have traced the beginning of the spread inside of Rikers with both prisoners and guards getting sick and dying. And now we've got a model pulled together by researchers, including from the ACLU, showing that this could get a lot worse before it gets better. This collaboration shows that the number of COVID-related deaths will increase twofold if measures are not taken to adequately reduce jail populations. Even if social distancing is strictly followed in every other area of American life, running jails as per usual would potentially cause an additional 100,000 people, both in and outside of jails, to lose their lives. And one of the things I find most interesting about the research that was done here was that they show that a lot of the models that have been used in conversations about the likely spread of coronavirus in America is based off of research and projections done in Europe. And Europe has a lot of similarities with America, but one big difference is that they don't lock up a massive percentage of their population. They show that the models the US uses are based on ones that have tracked cases in countries that experienced coronavirus outbreaks before we did. They didn't have mass incarceration. When you factor in that, we are again talking about hundreds of thousands of people. My fear in this story is that advocating for changes to protect those lives is never going to be popular. You're going to be attacked for doing it. We know that any advocacy for people in prison is going to be met with calls that it's a waste of money. Why are you focusing on those sorts of things? And that's why I think we've seen such a slow response to the spread of coronavirus in prisons already over the course of the past 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's let's open the casinos, but let's not care about the prisons. I mean, I can't listen. There is a bias, understandably, almost naturally, against prisons and the people in them for societally. But this is a pandemic. This is different, and the bias obviously shouldn't thrive anyway. But in this type of a situation, it's important that everybody is protected. And those are people that, what the fine print there was people inside and outside of prison. It can be spread because anybody has it anywhere. And that's the important thing about this virus that people are forgetting when they're looking at this prison issue. People have been talking about it in Mississippi. People were talking about it in Louisiana because that's where they saw a lot of the outbreak that made Louisiana such a flashpoint at the beginning. And it is largely being ignored. And the fact that people are paying attention to it is good now. But in some cases, it's probably too late because it did its damage as a spread already.
Yeah, that's my fear. I mean, in response to seeing this, I started looking back around at some of the early stories and seeing updated numbers. So, for instance, Rikers, as of Monday, or this is generally in New York, 800 city corrections employees had already tested positive and 8 had died. City officials wouldn't break down how many infected officers worked at Rikers, but the union says it accounts for 70 to 80% of the cases. Including inmates, there have been 10 deaths and more than 1,200 confirmed cases in the city's jails. And as we always say, that is the actual people who've been tested. And we know that it is still difficult to get tested. New York is doing better than it was before. But if they're distributing tests, I'm afraid that prisons are probably not the places that are getting, the first ones off the boat, so to speak.
That's exactly right. I mean, there are always going to be drawing last straw, and I think in this case they shouldn't be, obviously, because they can track the spread of coronavirus from prison into the general population, and that shouldn't happen.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.